Welcome to the Universal Dancer Podcast with your host Leslie Zare, author of The Alchemy of Dance and the Alchemia Remedies. Coming to you from Cairo, Egypt, the ancient land of Kem. Journey with us to explore sacred dance, the sacred arts, the mystical and the magical. Join a community of like-minded souls seeking to understand the cosmic dance of co-creation through the sacred arts. Come along and expand your mind, ignite your creativity, and explore something new and something old. Welcome to the Universal Dancer Podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Zare. And thank you for being here today. I have another very interesting guest. So let's just jump right in and let me introduce you to her. Cynthia Winton-Henry is the playful teacher and author of 4 books on dance, creativity, and wisdom, including Dance, the Sacred Art, The Joy of Movement as a Spiritual Practice. A co-founder of InterPlay with Phil Porter, she engages an active creative community approach to the wisdom of the body and increasingly the body wisdom of soul, as shared on her Substack, The Dancing Center, online dance chapels, and Art of Ensoulment courses through her Hidden Monastery website. Her lifelong quest to honor body and soul began in Sunday morning liturgies at her Methodist church and in studying the integration of dance and culture in West Africa. As a student of love, freedom, healing, and community, Cynthia follows a call to hold dance and religion together that led to 20 years of ordination in the Protestant Church, an unlikely dancing venue, and service as a professor of dance and theology at the Pacific School of Religion, Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California, the Sophia Center in California, and conferences around the world. She performed in Body and Soul Dance Company, directed InterPlay's improvisational performance company, Wing It Performance Ensemble, and produced a dozen Unbelievable Beauty of Being Human concerts around the globe. Her new book, The Art of Ensoulment, a playbook on how to create from body and soul, shares 12 key practices and the world view she draws upon to live fully and freely as a mystic, dancer, and lover of life. Let's welcome Cynthia to the show. Hi, Cynthia. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
So grateful to be with you, Leslie.
I'm very excited to speak to you. I have read your book, this Sacred Art of Dance, and I'm about halfway through your new book, but we'll speak about that in just a moment. So maybe you can just begin by telling us, how did you first get involved with dance? Did you dance as a child? What was the door in to dance for you?
You know, there's a childhood story of a farm in Indiana where I was born, and a 3 to 5-year-old who was dancing in front of everybody to Elvis Presley's "He Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog." And so my mom was a roller skating dancer when she was in high school and a competitive person. My dad was till he died, a long distance runner, mountain runner. So I just came naturally by these genes that physical connection is the way my family understood things. They didn't tell a lot of stories, but they moved, right? And I was lucky to have a kindergarten ballet teacher who blessed me with one of those little music box dancers that I still have somewhere. Took some ballet, but then really quickly realized that I wasn't being chosen. You know, I didn't have all the right apparatus for ballet, even though when I saw Swan Lake, when I was just a wee person with my mom and dad, I thought I was probably that. So, you know, it's that kind of strange thing that people feel, particularly women, of, you know, this feels like right, this feels like how I know things and who I want to be, and then the impossibility of being a ballet dancer. So yeah, that
I
was
can
like
relate to
early. Yeah.
that. So when did dance become a spiritual practice for you? So you started with ballet, and then what did you move into after that, or when did the next phase come in?
When I decided I had to choose between brownies or or ballet where they were critical, I chose brownies, but eventually I was so lucky, Leslie, to have a high school that actually had a modern dance class. And my
Wow.
teacher, Pat McLaughlin, saw something in me. And so I was basically having a daily modern dance class and learning to choreograph in a very rudimentary way. She pointed me to the UCLA dance department. And along the way, in that arc of just having this love of dance, so it's just merely a love of dance that I have, an innate love. Um, I got also seen in my Methodist church at a time where people, I think these were Protestant folks who were coming out of the 60s, and I was seen, and they wanted youth to find their creative path, and they put me in charge of choreographing and dancing a couple of things, and it just woke up. It was like, why isn't everybody doing this?
Yes, I can understand that. But I also understand the other part of it, as you were saying with the ballet. I mean, I think that that's one reason that a lot of women don't dance is because they think they have to be perfect, or there's only ballet, and if they're not built like a ballerina, then they're not going to do that. And sadly, I think a lot of people get stuck there. So um,
Yeah,
that's why we're here.
it is.
Show people there are many ways to dance.
So many ways. And I think that, now, as one of my friends, Shoinka, says, so you think you can dance? We live in an even more um, hyper beauty, hyper artistic, hyper athleticism on television and on screen. I just love what I'm seeing. But if I were stepping into the world right now, I would, not I would not know how to find the dance that references to the inside, not to the outside. And the indigenous ways, the ancient ways, the community-based ways, as you and I know, are not performative in that kind of way. It's not a showing; it's a referencing to the dance of life, and yes to having it be a powerful visual thing, but that's not the primary aim, right?
It's
So
not so much a performance art as an
yes,
expressive art, I think.
a
Yes, at least, I mean, for some.
way to contact the wisdom, the sources of wisdom and connection. Dance is, Suzanne Langer said, dance is a virtual realm of power. And when I studied and started understanding why this was so important to me, and what had broken apart in our world, that the removal of dance from thinking, from the body politic, from so much, that the power center in the body is and the connected body is, a fundamental way of knowing, and also remembering how power is an earth human dance, not a you over there with the money dance. Um,
Yes.
it's important. It's an important, such a key to what we are needing to recover, I think. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. Can't stop talking or thinking about it.
You're in it. Yeah, and we can feel that, and that's really beautiful. So thank you for that. Yes.
Thank
Would
you.
you call what you do liturgical dance? I mean, I think a lot of it is done in the church. Can you explain a little bit what liturgical dance is?
Well, dance that happens in a liturgy. It's a context of dancing, and those who are in a liturgy or a worship form, um, you those are folks that are really building a body of knowledge about ritual in that environment. So I have danced in a lot of liturgies, both Catholic and Protestant, and liturgies that happened in big conferences. And it's so to awaken as coming from a Christian lineage, to awaken to the words and the story of the word become flesh, to awaken to the dance of Jesus and the disciples. The hymn of Jesus even was a liturgy of dancing in a circle in the ancient understanding from the apocryphal Acts of John. To know that people actually were, from the Hebraic tradition, naturally dancers. It wasn't something that was sort of set aside. So yeah, it's a like one of the most powerful ways of entering into sacrament, and also embodying, incarnating for and with the people, what one is presencing in a worshipful way. It's just the most beautiful thing.
And is it typically Christian? Is it typically in the Christian church, or would it be in many religions?
Well, I think, as you very well know, Leslie, the ritual aspects of dance are fundamental throughout almost uh, every people's practice, including what we call the religion or the beliefs and behaviors of belonging. So, and the way that people reference and contact their own sense of divine relationship. It's everywhere. And this is what surprised me when I was in college. I went into this museum at UCLA, and there was this exhibit called African Art in Motion. As a dancer, I was like, okay, and art, yay. So I went in, and the whole place was just alive with the experience of it, not just like I saw the flashing of the raffia and the drums, and it was like, so, and that it was rising right up out of our earliest ways of knowing in Africa. Wow, I just got so moved, and immediately I found myself in African dance classes and looking for the richness there, and one thing led to another, and I wound up in West Africa for a summer, to experience and explore what that what 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 that would feel like, right? To have drum and dance and chant and these embodiments of spirit just so present. While I was there, I was part of a village, Tayama village, ritual, coming out of girls from the bush after their initiation, and the spirit dancer showed up, and all the drums. So I did experience that, just coming out into the village. We all got dressed in the same fabric and garments. After the coming out, we all danced through the village. Here's this tall, skinny white girl, dancing. I just can't imagine what that was like.
Never
But
mind.
welcoming. Um,
Yes.
you know,
As
the
long as you can feel it, I think people do want you there. Like it's us that sets ourselves apart probably more than anybody else does.
thank you for saying that. Such a good reminder. You know, I think there's natural caution in humans about stepping over and stepping in. And I know I feel that. Come in, come in. I welcome you when there's something beautiful and good.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and it's so refreshing isn't quite the right word, but to see cultures that still have dance and this kind of primordial dance and drums and all of that's still part of their culture.
Oh,
Because imagine growing up with that, with drumming. For me especially, I think drumming is so healing, and dancing to drums, that if you just had that from childhood, that would really be, I think you'd be taking a huge step forward just in the beginning, for other than the rest of us that have to get back to it somehow and find that. Yeah. So then you went on to develop InterPlay. Can you tell us a bit about InterPlay, what it is and what you do with it, how it's used?
starting in college, I began to recognize that my teachers were seeing a gift for improvisation. And this is the 70s. We didn't really have improv theater, we didn't have improvisational conversations, conscious dance. We didn't have that in our language. So again, you know, praise to the teachers who could see and sense something. Because that, as it turns out, speaking of cultures, the baseline indigenous and world practices have very solidified forms, but the everyday forms in community life are highly improvisational. So if you were in a village, you wouldn't want to be just doing the same thing over and over and over and over, right? It's so I experienced that. I saw that, the aliveness within forms. So interplay with Phil Porter was the development and the evolution of our combined recognition of this innate gift we had for improvising, and especially coming out of dance. And as we formed a practice, a desire to teach or learn about this, we created Wing It Performance Ensemble. Other people with performance backgrounds who were really interested in this whole body, mind, body, heart, spirit connection, and performing in something that could be viewed, right? Something that could be viewed, that you wouldn't just experience yourself. So the first requirements we put on ourselves was, how do we create improvisationally, compositionally, like a jazz musician, but also where it would be, people would be willing to watch it. That was an art thing. So it's really born out of the art and theology, art and spirit nexus. And so Wing It developed as a laboratory. And within that laboratory, very quickly, we began recognizing, oh, our bodies want to move and dance. And out of this dance, we want to have voice and music, and we want to have story. And creating theater is really tricky. So let's just let it be the dance of our own stories or our own knowing. So these forms of movement, voice, stories, and stillness, which I came to learn are some of the primary soul forms, like how people in village, in earth life, would know that their soul is connected, that they were dancing, that they were singing, that they were telling their stories, that they could be still and at rest. So the fact that it rose up kind of naturally out of us, following and listening, just an amazing thing. And so over time, like a decade or so in, we started realizing, oh, there were some basic things that we were knowing now from the wisdom of the body. We saw that interplay was unlocking wisdom for people, their own. So we honor, like, one of the things is the inner authority of each body in this dancing life. And that alone, just honoring what was coming forth as people gently notice, recognize things, having space for that in it all, that, I think that also woke up the possibility that interplay could be a place for learning from the body in therapy and in social action and in research and, all education. So like, oh, wow, there's just our body spirits have a lot they want to contribute, to the conversation. It's beautiful.
They have a
So
lot to tell us.
interplay,
Hmm.
in my path, not as a person who is thinking ever founding a movement. I was not thinking I've got a 30-year plan. I hardly had a 1-year plan. Uh, yeah, I had to learn a lot about organization and how a body wise organization can can grow. Or by body wise, what I mean by that is kind of like it stays organic, it stays true to what our bodies can sustain. It goes slowly,
That
and
seems the best, to walk the talk. I mean, when something emerges like that, it's been created not from your mind, as you said, but from creation itself. It's something that's just come through you and evolved and taken form. And it seems to me that is the most natural way to do something, or um, the best way to do something, in the sense that you're going to be, it's not over intellectualized. It's real, and it's informed by the body, and it's emerged from the body. So that if someone has the patience to do that, and again, I'm sure that was your journey as well. That was how it came out for you. I know for me, the alchemy of dance was that was what came through me. And and then it's real somehow, that it's coming from a higher place, that it's that wisdom, as you said, that wants to come out and be seen and has taken form in some way.
so
That's
beautifully
beautiful.
said. It is something to be able to know this, isn't it, Leslie? One of the little tools that has become so helpful in the interplay practice around body wisdom, and our listeners this might be helpful, because how do you connect to that body wisdom, right? Our training is so different. It is body wisdom because it can't not be body, and it can't not be wisdom, right? So it is body wisdom, but it's such a tiny slice. So in interplay, we talk about body data. So being able to notice little bits and pieces of our experience. So, if we're doing meditation or something, we'll probably notice, oh, I'm feeling energized or not. That's data, and data can be memory. It can be anything. So body data, but then you can notice the patterns in your physical holistic experience. So, oh, I like the morning, I don't like the morning to be too talkative. We notice our patterns. And then wisdom is, what do we do for our own good and for the good of others, that is based on our data and patterns. So it's almost a scientific method of recognizing and perceiving and even sharing and affirming, confirming data and knowledge and our choices. It's very hard if we don't start with the data of our own experience and get that it's in a pattern. It's very hard to get to wisdom that's natural and organic, unless, like you and I had we're sort of set up as bodies to pay attention, the gift of wanting to move, or we're connected to higher, deeper, wider orders, sometimes naturally, and like trying to make sense of this in our crazy world.
Just move through it. It'll come. Just keep doing it. But you use the word formation. And I thought that was such a beautiful, can you explain more what that is? I think that's a beautiful word. I've used that, by the way, and always
Good. Yeah,
attributed it to you, but it's a great word.
it
Yes,
is a great word, and it's like why don't we have that word already in our vocabulary? So
exactly.
I'm sure it's in the dictionary, and actually, I don't think we're the only place that it rose as a rising up, because information, right? Stuff comes in and forms in us. And it does form. I recently heard a brain science thing about cognitive load, that when your mind gets full, they literally call it a sensation of load on the mind. And, I've got a lot on my mind, right? Well, on my heart, on my guts. So information comes in, and exformation is not just about the expression of it, but its movement into the outside form, right? So when you use a form like dance or writing or storytelling, even just a little bit, it moves it out, and it feels like in the body it's going into a place. It's not just I'm crying. It's not just I'm laughing. It's not just like it's not just I'm moving, but it's like a recognition that I'm sending it back out into a form outside me. Beautiful. And it's necessary in number one, if you're highly sensitive and you take in a lot of information, by nature, 1 in 5 of us is highly sensitive. We're receiving more than we can, hold, for sure. And it's necessary for almost everybody in a very, very active information environment.
For me, I'm really conscious of this in the sense that I will go through periods where I research something. I'm interested in something. I read a lot about it. I research it. I watch videos, whatever. And then I have to go through this period where I have to let it go into my body, my brain, whatever, and then bring it out in some form. And I'm really conscious that I get to a place of almost being saturated. I take so much in, and then and it could be months like that. I can't do any more reading, any more anything. And I know that it's time for me to birth something. It's time for me to take everything that's come in and create it into some form and then birth it out. And I think, as you've just explained, like that's probably the natural cycle, that we take things in, it gestates inside of us, and then we have to birth it out. But if we could do that regularly, just for me, I can't do anything else. I can feel that. But for other people to go through those cycles, and it's almost like the cycles of the moon. And we could do it like on a lunar cycle or something like that. In the dark moon, we're going to birth it out. In the full moon, we're going to take things in, whatever. But just to some kind of a cycle that would allow us to do that, I think could be a very healthy practice.
Yeah, for me, I am highly sensitive, meaning I feel more, sense more, think more, notice more. You know, and then feel like I'm a bit much. Funny thing. But for me, like just shaking and sighs and sometimes just whoa, like that. I'm like a dog. I just have to. And one of the things that dancing does, Leslie, is that in my body, it just brings everything without thinking into an aligned place, so that even if I swish my arms back and forth like sweeping to some music, that sweeping and flinging and grounding myself, like in 7 minutes I can get a full reset of a spacious sensation. And I've noticed that in a lot of the InterPlay and other communities that I've been in, it doesn't actually necessarily have to take a long time. And it's a huge relief. It's necessary for my body, as sensitive and also therefore easily depressed by or anxious. The anxiety and depression, aren't just symptoms of a disorder. They're like the natural response to having a lot going on. Um, I don't want to shut down, so I really want to have a regular sense of not only personal access, but confirmation from community that this is a good and healthy thing to do. Um,
Talk a little bit more about being a highly sensitive person, because I think that this is important. And as you mentioned, 1 in 5 people are highly sensitive. So because I think a lot of people are and they don't realize it, they're just trying to cope.
yes.
And I think once you do realize it and you begin to do things like a 20-minute practice or something like that you just described, I think it makes a huge difference. So maybe you could speak about that a little bit more.
Yes, the work of Elaine Ahrens, she was one of the initial people to really bring this understanding and scientific research into the fore, and she wrote a book, The Highly Sensitive Person, and you can go on her website and actually take some tests so that you can sort of get a reading of how you are experiencing your sensitivity. Sensitive, like, I realized that the word sensitive has a kind of shadow on it, to be sensitive, right? And there's now a film out for men, about men, highly sensitive men, because if it's there for women, you can imagine how hard it is for men. Like, wow, just that you can't really even articulate that you feel more, you sense more. Your imagination is alive and activated at a higher level often. You're thinking more. You might be talking more or talking less because they're trying to process quite a bit more information than average. I just have to say that we also know that sensitivity covers at least 4/5 of us. So it's not just about being highly sensitive. I believe highly sensitive people are Earth designed to help the rest of us sensitives have tools, have the support. Like, I don't think it's a mistake. You can't have that big of a pattern, right? So it's a powerful way that our species is organized. And if 1/5 of us is not so sensitive, we certainly want to be careful that we don't put those people in leadership because they're not clued into the earth. And if we do, that they do have structures of support. So today we have it flipped around. Not the people with the least sensitivity are in charge of companies and governments, and or they have the most ability to shut that down. I don't know what it is. And the people with the highest sensitivity are in hospitals. That's not that it's topsy-turvy. So a lot of
Well,
my
and
work is
it's
trying to, like, say, hey, let's just recheck this. This isn't body wise and soul wise.
no, but again, it's about embracing everything. Like
Hmm.
in ancient times, those people that were very sensitive were seen as gifted, and they were used in very specific ways to advise other people. And somehow we got to this place of it being something shameful almost. Oh, you're being too sensitive, and shut that down, and don't be so sensitive. But I think that with all the work that's coming up, Stephen Porges and all the work that's coming up with trauma and just how our nervous systems engage without us thinking about it. And I do think that people that are highly sensitive, that's what's happening, is your nervous system is just engaging more quickly. The threshold perhaps is smaller, and maybe it even comes from trauma, or you're born with it or whatever. But to realize this. And as you said, to use it in a very positive way. These could be people that could teach other people, the canary in the coal mine. I mean, they're gonna pick up the methane before the human being does. So, you look at that to as guidance for something that you cannot perceive. So I think that that's important. Again, if you are highly sensitive, and people can do that quiz on the website, or you probably know, but it's probably something that you have shut down or even feel shameful about. So I think that we need to re-embrace these aspects and realize that there is a place for everything. So I was very happy to read about that in your book, because I think it is, and I think creative people are generally probably in those categories, that because they are perceiving dimensions, they're perceiving colors. That was the thing. I went to see Picasso when I was in New York City once at the Met. They had a special exhibit of Picasso. He's not one of my favorite artists. I'm not into Cubism, but it was there. It's an opportunity, so I went. And I saw his first works, and I just thought they were so beautiful. And the thing that really struck me were the colors. The way he mixed colors. I was just like sucked in by the way the colors he used and the way he mixed colors. And I'm sure that even if his Cubist paintings had the same colors in a print, which was all I had seen to that point, it isn't going to come across. But that made me realize that artists must see colors in a completely different way than I see color. I love to work with color, but not as paint, more as like graphic design or something. But that was an eye-opener for me, because I thought, okay, yes, he is definitely seeing something that is absolutely amazing, the way he uses colors, the way he uses them together. So I do think that people that are artists, I'm sure musicians with sound, dancers, I know for myself, like I feel, to me, certain rhythms are a very specific movement. And that's how I do choreography. It's I don't feel like I'm making anything up. I feel like I'm just hearing it in the music. So I think that that's important to, if you are highly sensitive, to really embrace that and find a way to a medium perhaps for it to come out through.
Yes. There's a book, The Healing Wisdom of Africa, by Malidoma Somé. I don't know if I have it right here to show people, but it is, I use that book throughout when I was teaching seminarians, because it's such a great book about that confirms just what you're saying, the way that the artist, the way that the mystic is there in support of the community, how the community supports the artist. And he said he describes it in such a beautiful way. Malidoma Somé was he's deceased now, but he was a person in the Dagara tribe and eventually went to the Sorbonne, because he got actually captured by the Jesuits. And then he took that path and went back as an adult, got initiated. So he carried that twin understanding of his tradition and what we in the so-called West are confronting. And that book, his articulations, if you need to have that opened up or just confirmed, because so much of us just need confirmation. It's like we need community around this. It's a bit, we feel a bit other, and odd anyway, especially if you're highly sensitive. You are other, 1 in 5, right? So we get that we're not quite the same.
Yes,
why am I hearing?
It becomes obvious. Yes.
Am I seeing things? I don't know.
Just don't tell anybody.
Well, that's just not been my way. Like, I have a whole book
Well,
about it.
yeah.
I like want to
No,
see.
but I thankfully we are coming to a time where we can. I mean, I think about experiences that I had in my childhood when I was 9 or 10. In the 60s or 70s, you would not dare open your mouth because you would have been put in some kind of insane asylum. But now you can, because we have more knowledge about, you know, other types of experiences. So it becomes more digestible, maybe for the masses or whatever. But I do think that that is something that's opening up, and it's nice because I do think it helps other people to hear people speak about their experiences, because if they've had similar ones, it doesn't make it seem quite so other, or there is someone that you can relate to.
Yeah,
So let's talk. Go
one of my
ahead.
hopes is that we actually can continue to move toward an understanding of credentialing one another by our affirmations and by remuneration and by recognizing. And grandparents are so good for credentialing little ones. Oh, you have this. If I hadn't been seen by my teachers along the way and given that gift over and over, it would be such a different story for me. So credentialing, which means to give credence to. And anytime you send a thank you note, that's a credential, a credentialing. So I
That's
find
beautiful.
important part of my practice is to like people, comment, credential.
Because I think a lot of people don't see themselves.
Oh no.
We can be that mirror to reflect back to, because how would you? Like you're in here seeing the world out that way. You don't, okay, if that person does something very different, then you think, well, I'm not like that, but maybe you don't know what you are like because you're not seeing yourself from the outside. So
Yeah.
I think it takes us back to the idea of community, that you need other people. You need other people to reflect back to you and to um, credential, or however you want to put that, that what your gifts are and what you are bringing to the world and how other people are responding to you. So that's beautiful. Yeah. Let's talk about ensoulment. Explain how you would describe ensoulment, and then we can talk about your new book.
Okay. Well, we're part of the embodiment movement. So the re-embodiment, right? Remembering now, like you're saying, thank goodness we have, so much more access to understanding the importance of being embodied, and people are recognizing that they're getting ill from not paying attention. And so the embodiment movement, and all the way exploding into, huge conferences. I see some of the people that have been on your podcast have been part of this consciousness movement. So when I started with Body and Soul Dance Company, I kind of instinctively just knew body and soul. But in InterPlay, I didn't want to really, while it was in there, we talk about body spirit, didn't really want to talk about soul because we just needed to get the body back. Right. So, and we wanted to keep, I didn't
One
want to
step at a time.
place any of my own lineage. It's just hard enough coming out of a Protestant lineage to, be considered any part of what has gone right or wrong through Protestantism in our culture. It's a dominant white form. So, the soul question had to come slowly. But for myself, I had to keep paying attention to all sorts of things. And so I was building an understanding and teaching about, what's going on, these 12 initiations, these 12 really important things for me. And eventually, the choice to say clearly, what is soul in the body? What is the body wisdom of soul? And for me, soul is not, it's the myth of it being higher, the myth of it being hard to get to, the myth of it being holier than somebody else, the myth of it being, really anything that isn't just totally accessible and normal. That's one of the things that I want to just move beyond and sit down into. Let's start paying attention to soul as accessible. It's here, noticeable. I can sense it. One of my friends called it the me of me, or the you of you, and that it's a profoundly interconnected, and yet beautiful flower of, reality. So ensoulment is really about how do we keep coming back to that place in ourselves, that knowingness, um, and how do we function in it? That it feels to me like an eternal, a timeless energy system. And when my body is organized through it, and best through the creative birthrights, movement, voice, stories, and stillness, like when those are engaged, even if I don't feel strong in them, it comes online. More and more I can feel it, and more it gets organized, and more access. So then I also have to learn how in soul to suffer. Jesus said in this community dance, learn to suffer so as not to suffer. And he did that inside of a dance, right? It wasn't like inside of me sitting on my corner and trying to suffer. It's like there's a whole way of suffering, dealing with our suffering, that is restorative, that leads us more quickly to resilience. And the arts, all the arts, but particularly dancing, if you're in grief. It's so surprising. It, again, topsy-turvy. So the art of ensoulment shares that. And it also is about these 3 directives I heard going down the freeway one day. These are your 3 directives, said a voice: efficiency of energy, clarity of vision, and courage to love. And so I, in my journey, had to figure out, well, what does that mean for me? How do I, how, what is efficiency of energy for me? What is clarity of vision? And what is courage to love? I thought courage to love would be the easy thing. It takes courage to love.
It does.
So
Absolutely.
it's exciting for me to have this playbook and this practice now in play with colleagues and friends. I call my community playmates, because we're learning together, and it is playful. It can be very, it doesn't have to have a piety, a sacred piety, a kind of a bounded, held thing. There's lots of space in it.
Well, I haven't finished the book, but it's a beautiful book, by the way, to begin with. I love
So,
that it's aesthetically pleasing to begin with. I remember many years ago in some bookshop, I found a copy of Louise Hay's "You Can Heal Your Life," and it was all colorful and lots of artwork in it and all of that. And I thought to myself, wow, like that's beautiful, just it's a piece of art in and of itself, never mind what it says, but what it says on top of that. And that really hit me, and your book reminded me of that, because it's a work of art unto itself, beyond what's written in it. But I found it really digestible, and I love all the journaling exercises. And I think it is something that, what you just said, ensoulment, trying to find the self or the me of me. I think that's something, first of all, that not everybody does. it does take courage. To me, that's what being on a spiritual path is. And I do think it takes courage to do that, because as you peel away the layers, you get to deeper and deeper things, and it's not always easy. But I think that that your book is very, because of all the journaling exercises, and that it is digestible, and it is taking you through this process of that is doable, I guess. Because I think a lot of times people get on a path and then they kind of get stopped. They don't know which way to go. And I do think so much of the work has to be done on our own. We can have guides, but it really, in the end, needs to be done on your own. So having this playbook that you can experiment with and play, I think it's a beautiful book. So thank you for writing that, because it is, and I hope that people will read it, because it is very powerful, everything that you're bringing forth there.
I have to thank Marla Durden, who saw, I was thinking I was going to just publish my teaching so that people could have a print version. And she looked at it and she says, this is supposed to be something more. And she said, I like to take it and create something more. And she is an indigenous woman. She had experienced my what I was offering. She's just an amazing human being in so many ways. And she's the one that took my art and made the art out of the book. And the spirit of collaboration, the way of play, allowing the space that's required for these kinds of things. You're right. It's like I can only do my part, but also then, like our conversation, Leslie. Thank you for having me, because these collaborations, these interplays, are the knitting together, the revelation of what is in between us, and how to raise that up together. I just think I'm so grateful to Marla. I just wanted to give her a shout out here, for having that, pushing
Well, I
me.
think that's another form of credentialing too. I think it's then reflecting back to you that what you have here is not just information for people, but an experience,
Hmm.
and a piece of art, because you have created it. You've created it from your experiences. And why shouldn't it visually reflect that as well? So I think she saw you, and
Right?
she brought that into form.
Surely did, and I want to just see her right back. She's awesome. Somebody to
Yeah.
Southern Root Woman is her website. Hmm.
Wow. All right. Well, speaking of websites, if people want to get in touch with you, how is the best way to do that? We have your website.
Yeah. The Hidden Monastery. If you look up my name, you'll find on Google, you'll find I use my name as the portal, because I learned once that, by the way, if you're ever doing this kind of stuff, your name is what people can remember. So it's kind
Yes.
of embarrassing, but it's also a good. So just look for my name for anything. But the Hidden Monastery, my website, is also how I show where the online dance chapels are. So people can connect with not just me, but others who are leading small, intimate spaces for this kind of natural practice of moving and dancing on behalf of one another. And the art of ensoulment courses and all of that.
And you're on Facebook at Hidden Monastery,
Yes, I am.
LinkedIn, your name, Cynthia.
Hmm.
Did I spell that right?
You
Winton,
did.
yes. Cynthia Winton-Henry. Okay, with no
Nope.
dashes, no spaces.
Yeah.
Okay. And YouTube,
Yeah.
same
And I
thing.
hope to join you at some point in having more conversations on, in this forum. Thank you for your practice. It's an encouragement to me.
Well, thank you for being here and speaking with us and sharing your wisdom. I think, as I said, I've only read 2 of your books. I know you have other books, but you really do have a lot of wisdom to share, and I hope that people will look at your website or read your books, especially the new one that's coming out. I think it is something. It is a playbook that is very usable and a good way to connect to soul and to find ways to connect to soul. So
Yeah,
thank you so much
Les,
for being here.
thank you so much. One thing I'd love for people to find, if you want to find me, my most favorite place is on Substack. Right now I'm writing at
Yes.
the it's called the Dancing Center. Thank you, Leslie. I just find that platform so beautiful and accessible, and it's a place where you can comment. We can have conversations about all of this stuff too. So, if you're a writer, if your folks are on Substack, I can follow them too. So,
Okay, great. So that's again Cynthia's name, Cynthia Winton-Henry. Substack.com, and I will have all of the links in the show notes so you can go there and also find them. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for being here.
thank you,
It's been a
Leslie.
pleasure to speak to
Oh,
you.
we could dance together fully. That would
Someday.
be
Someday. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for being
Any
here. And thank you for to the viewers for being here. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you will check out Cynthia's website and social media and Substack, and also her book. As I said, it's a beautiful book and very easy to work through. So I think if you're looking for something to use as a guide, it is a playbook, and I think it's well named like that. But she does give you a lot of exercises and things to contemplate. So I hope you will take advantage of that. And you can find me on universaldancer.com. And I also have a school where I teach a very basic dance as a spiritual practice online course, and that's universaldancer.thinkific.com. All right. Well, thank you for being here. And I hope you will watch also some of the past episodes if you're new to this podcast. And I hope to see you again here in the future. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.